you looking to sharpen your budgeting skills? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Budget Couple Podcast, where we talk about life, family, and how to afford it. And now, the Budget Couple themselves, Nate and Danielle.
Welcome to the Budget Couple Podcast. I'm Nate.
And I'm Danielle.
And this week we're going to go ahead and answer a listener question. But before we do that, we want to thank everybody who's new and listening to this show. We've seen a big uptick since the new year, and we really appreciate the support. If you guys have any questions for us, you can always go to budgetcouple.com and click on that contact form. It goes right to our email, and we'll be able to get back in touch with you or answer it here on the show. Additionally, I spent the last week or so updating the website, so if you like how it looks, there's going to be a lot more stuff popping on there in the very near term. So just keep an eye out on our website, and that's where we're going to be at. So let's go ahead and get into our first listener question.
All right. So as usual, I'll go ahead and read a chunk of it here so that you guys know what we're answering. How often do you guys meet to review your budget? How often do you update your budgeting sheet? Every purchase, every day, weekly? We have an 18-month-old and we used to love budgeting individually and as a couple, but we've gotten very out of practice. So would love to hear how you guys track and meet as a couple. Great question, actually. We really liked this one.
Yeah, this one really just went right to the top of our list because we really liked it, and it's not too bad to answer, but it makes you think about things.
Yeah, and I mean, we don't actually think too much about like how often we're going through our budget and such. So it was interesting for us to step back and try and answer that essentially.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting that you guys talk about having a kid and how things your time changes and your priorities change, and it's very true. It makes time management much more difficult. A lot of our budgeting stuff is done after he goes to bed or on the weekends when he's napping. So I get it. But anyway, just to start us off for answering this, we at least review our budget once a month because, as we've talked about in multiple episodes, we go through everything at the end of the month. That's when we actually start looking at our debit account. Or into our checking account, should I say. And we pay all of our bills and we figure out where we're at. So we review what we've spent and make sure we're on track with what we were supposed to end up with. So we always track our income and we always know our expenses. So we just have to make sure that it's lining up. And if it's not, we need to figure out what went wrong. Did we not write something down? Was something more expensive than we thought it was and we didn't correct that on our actual spreadsheet? We review that constantly.
As far as other things go, we update our budget every time we spend money, or I'm not always good at this, but Danielle's always really good at going ahead and updating the budget whenever she spends something, either on our miscellaneous budget or going out budget or her personal budget. She's really good about that. I usually take a couple days, but it gets there. So we're generally pretty good about everything. And one of the reasons why we do this is, one, it helps us keep track of everything, but it also allows us to kind of just check in and see how the overall budget's feeling for the month. Like, for example, right now, this was a month where we had a lot of expenses. We had to get the oil and the car changed. I have my life insurance costs, and we have a bunch of other things that lined up, which really took a chunk out of our miscellaneous expenses. And because of that, we're actually over on that. We're over by $44. It's the 17th of the month, and we know that we're already $44 over. So we know we have to shut down spending on that. And the reason why we know that is because we're on our budget. We look at it every single day. We might not talk about it every day, but we're each looking at it each day. And then what we're going to do is, because we have budget in other areas, like let's say going out, we'll try to scale that back to make up that $44 so we come out even on the budget.
So another reason that we sometimes check our budget or have to, reevaluate things is, and it usually does fall at the beginning and whatever of a month, is when we have a big change in one of our expenses or one of our incomes. And, recently we've actually talked about it. I think it was the last episode. We had a change in daycare costs. So we had to reevaluate our budget and make quite a few changes actually. And just think through things. So we also will revisit budgets when that sort of thing happens as well. So it's random changes in our incoming or outgoing. It's every month to pay everything and just to make sure we're on track. And then it's honestly almost every day because we spend money. And so we always want to be tracking that. That's very important to us.
Yeah. And we're very open with each other on everything because we want to make sure we're on the same page. We talk to each other. If we buy something or do something, we kind of let each other know. Or particularly when I buy something, Danielle always asks, did you update the budget? Because
he doesn't.
Because I'm bad about it. So she keeps me honest with that. And it's an important thing because we need to be on the same page, and I can't be overspending. She can't be overspending. That never happens. But we need to make sure that we're on page with each other with everything.
Yeah. And I mean, big scary things too. Also bring us back. We've talked about also in one of the most recent episodes that we noticed $2,000 was kind of just missing one month. It wasn't actually. It was just a weird computer issue.
Didn't show up on the mobile app for a few hours, and it scared us half to death.
But those are things that also pull us back and have us reevaluate. But anyway, I guess one of the things to think about is, once you get into a rhythm, it might not be crucial to be constantly checking, rearranging, reorganizing, and analyzing your budget to in a hardcore sense. But we always constantly look at it. And that is to help us keep track of our spending. We know our limits. We just have to make sure we're sticking to them each month. So we give ourselves X amount of dollars in our personal budget. That limit really means nothing unless we actually limit ourselves to that. So that requires us to constantly go onto the spreadsheet and write down what we're spending. Both of us like to go out to lunches occasionally. Nate loves his tech stuff.
That I do.
I'll go out and buy clothes sometimes or a video game or something. And, you can't keep all that in your head. I certainly couldn't keep all those expenses in my head. You have to write that down in order to know whether you're going over each month or throughout the month, should I say. But for certain things, like for grocery store, for instance, we don't write down every time. So we go to the grocery store pretty much every Sunday, and we don't write that amount down every single time because we know after this many years, we know what we're going to spend pretty much. It evens out.
Yeah.
We roughly
$90 to $100 every time we go. And that's what it always is. It could be like 121 week, but the next week would be 80. So we almost always average out to about $400. And we know that we have it budgeted for. And it's been very, very consistent over the past decade or so. The
dangerous things are the things that that aren't consistent, that you can go crazy on, which is like our personal expenses or our miscellaneous expenses or going out to restaurants. You just lose track. So, it's a balance, but those are some of the reasons and ways that we check our budget.
Absolutely. But long answer short, as a very quick recap here, we talk about our budget in some way, shape, or form at least 3 times a week. We're very open with money. We talk about it in front of our son. It's not a secret to us. We talk about it on a very consistent basis. We review our entire budget at the end of every month so that we can plan for any changes that are going to be upcoming or anything like that. And as our family's grown, it has gotten more difficult to find time to discuss budget and to plan for all the possible expenses that come up, because there's a whole lot more that we have to think about now with a kid. That's a whole other person that we have to spend money on and that we have to think about. So we've really just made sure that being on the same page with our budget is a priority for us. We talk about it at dinner. We talk about it after he goes to bed. It just kind of is a thing that we touch base on a regular basis, and that helps us know what's going on and keeps us honest.
Yeah. So, I think that wraps out that question. I hope we helped you guys and we enjoyed thinking through that. So thank you.
That's going to go ahead and wrap it up for today's episode. Thank you for writing in. And if you have a question, you can go to budgetcouple.com and click on the contact form, fill it out, and it goes right to my inbox, and we'll get back with you as soon as possible to answer your question here on the show. Also, for those of you who have written reviews for us on Apple Podcasts or your podcast player of choice, we greatly appreciate it. It helps grow the show, and thank you for the many kind reviews that we've received so far. So with anything else, Danielle?
No, I think that's it. Thanks, guys. We appreciate it.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Budget Couple Podcast with your hosts, Nate and Danielle. For more great content and to stay up to date, visit budgetcouple.com. Make sure to check out the next episode of the Budget Couple Podcast, where we'll talk more about life, family, and how to afford it. We'll catch you next time.